Hello and welcome to another Open the Book. I wonder if you've ever been to a football match. I wonder what the supporters were like. Well, people at football match tend to get pretty excited, don't they? And I wonder how they show their excitement. Well, they might sing songs. They might shout. Some might wave banners or scarves in their team colours. And sometimes they jump up and down. Today's story is called King David Dances. I wonder what he was so excited about. Somehow, I don't think it was football. Well, my friend Peter is here to tell you the story today. So let's open the book and read King David Dances.
Eventually, King Saul died fighting the Philistines, and finally it was David's turn to be king. David had waited a long time to be king. He had been waiting ever since Samuel anointed him as a small shepherd boy. He had been waiting on the battlefield. He had been waiting in the wilderness. And now all his waiting was over. David was crowned king at last. But a new king needs a capital city and a palace to live in. And David was living in a tent in the town of Hebron. So David looked around him. He thought about the tribes who lived in the north and the tribes who lived in the south, and decided that the best place for the king of so many tribes would be somewhere in the middle. The city of Jerusalem was in the middle of all the tribes, a perfect location. But there were a few problems. Jerusalem had a high wall all around it, and was the top of a steep, rocky slope, and it was already occupied by the Jebusites, a fierce mountain people. So David had a good think. He thought about the high wall, thought about the steep, rocky slope, he thought about the fierce Jebusites, and then he remembered hearing about a secret tunnel which was used to bring fresh water into the city. If his men could see through that tunnel, they might have a chance of winning the city. Very quietly, late one night, Joab, one of David's loyal men, led a group of soldiers to the foot of the hill. Following David's directions, they searched for the entrance to the secret tunnel. At last they found it. Then, one by one, as quietly as possible, they stepped carefully over the wet stones. They squeezed between the rocks and climbed up into the secret tunnel. Everyone in Jerusalem was fast asleep. The city guards were busy looking out across the hills. No one was expecting them. Joab and his men threw open the city gates, and David and his soldiers marched in. Jerusalem was theirs. Now the new king had a new city, and he set about building himself a smart new palace. Carpenters and stonemasons came from far and wide. They brought the best wood they could find and set about sawing and cutting and carving and planing until the palace was finished. David had a good think. The palace was beautiful. The city was strong, and the people were happy. But something was missing. The Ark of the Covenant, that was it. The special box which held the Ten Commandments, the special box which the people had carried through the wilderness, the special box which reminded them of God's presence with them. That was what was missing. The box was being looked after by the priests, far away in Kiriath Jearim. They had been keeping it safe for many years. David wanted to do something special for God. After all, God had looked after him in a special way. So David gathered together all the priests and the people and went off to Kiriath Jearim to fetch the special box, which would always remind them that God was with them. Soon the procession was heading home, with the priests in the front, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, followed by the musicians, and then a great crowd of people. The closer they got to Jerusalem, the more excited David became. As the procession entered the city, David was so delighted that he took off his heavy royal robes and began to dance. The musicians played, the people cheered, and David danced for joy with all his might. Everyone was happy. Everyone, that is, apart from Michal, David's wife. She thought David looked ridiculous. She grumbled that he was making a fool of himself in front of everyone. "What will the common people think?" she sneered. But David didn't care. He just looked around him. The Ark of the Covenant of the special box, which reminded them of God's presence, was with them, was safely in Jerusalem. The kingdom was secure, and the people were happy.
Well, I wonder if you spotted why King David was so excited that he danced. It was because he brought back the special box that reminded his people that God was with them. David knew that to be a good king, he would need to follow God's way. David was king for many, many years, and the Bible tells us that as long as he followed God's ways, everything went well. Isn't it a shame that David's wife criticised him and made fun of him for being so excited and happy? It's very easy to make other people feel bad by making fun of them. Can you think of a time when you've made someone else sad by laughing at them in a mean way? Think about how you could put that right and what you might do differently next time. Let's take some time to think about that now. Now I'm going to say a prayer, and if you would like to make that prayer your own, then say Amen at the end after me. Dear God, thank you that David was so excited that he danced all the way to Jerusalem, even when his wife laughed at him. Please help us to do the right thing, even when people laugh at us. Amen.